Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Today Show. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, your host today, and it's a beautiful, hot, sunny Thursday here in the Great Northwest. And we're in our sundresses because it's so warm and beautiful. And today, of course, Thursday is our special community visitors. And I'll be joined shortly by Jill Younghusband, who co-hosts with me on our veteran special broadcasts. And we have a wonderful guest all the way from Newfoundland, Canada, Lisa Compton. So let's see, do we have any announcements? Probably a few. However, we'll make them as we go along, so to speak, because I don't want to waste too much time, because I know we have lots of information to collect from Lisa, and I was really honored to hear about the Quilts of Valour, being a quilter myself. So this was really intriguing to me. I used to make 2 quilts a year. I would make the blocks or the top of the part of the quilt in the wintertime while I was watching movies. And then in the summer, I'd open up my garage door, put my big old-fashioned quilt bars out there, and quilt all summer long. And of course, my family, we come from a long line of quilters. And so there was always a quilt up somewhere for us girls to gather and quilt. So this is really close to my heart, and it's bringing back all my memories of I actually have one on my bed here that I made years and years ago. So with that in mind, let's bring Jill to the stage and say good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Staying cool in Edmonton.
Right. It went up to 40 here yesterday. So we're feeling the heat, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Lisa before we'll talk behind her back before she gets here. So,
Sure.
She can hear us, but go for it.
I first heard about Quilts of Valour when I got hired on to work at the Ottawa Hospital Cancer Center, and there was a woman who worked in the payroll office, and she was a quilter, and she said, "Oh, you're ex-military?" And she asked me, had I heard of Quilts of Valour? And I said, "No, I haven't." And so I checked out their website, and then I started nominating people. and I'm not a sewer. I don't even sew buttons. I go to the tailor. But I started nominating eligible veterans that I knew. And then I became a volunteer ambassador for Quilts of Valour. I got the fun part of presenting quilts to veterans.
Oh.
And I myself was presented one in 2018. It was it was an emotional moment, I have to say. And so it's on my bed. I use it, and it's a wonderful gesture of appreciation to recognize the service and sacrifice of our veterans here in Canada. And I was so proud to be a part of that organization for a number of years. I became their social media coordinator at one time, and we got quite busy before the lockdowns.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, they've got volunteers across the country, but I'll let Lisa share that information. But I have to say, I have met so many wonderful people through this organization across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud to have been a part of this organization, and I'm so happy to showcase Quilts of Valour Canada today.
Thank you so much for that. I see we have some live viewers, and so if you're watching us, please say good morning to us so we know who you are. And if there's a reason why, or I should put a plug in for you, I will. So of course, Kathy Bell is always here. Kathy's our behind the scenes support system for us here on the Today Show, and she always comes to the shows. But I see there are more people too, so if you're here, please let us know who you are so we can pop up your comments or your questions. And I won't take any more time, and we'll bring Lisa to the stage.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Davis. Morning, Jill.
Good morning, my dear. It's lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Yes. Just call me Laurie.
Okay.
That's my favorite name, Laurie. I was named after my grandmother, who actually taught me how to quilt. Hello.
There you go.
That's great. So let's get started then. Lisa, you're the president of the Quilts of Valor now. So tell us, what is your role? What do you do as the president of the organization?
Oh, that's a good one. So, as the president, I guess I am one of the leaders of the team. We definitely operate on a team front, 100%. We have volunteers coast to coast, and as Jill had talked about, we have folks that present quilts, we have folks that make quilts. Um, as the president, I kind of oversee a lot of different positions, try to help with leadership and growth of the organization, um, as well as just encourage everyone as part of the team that on how we can move forward and just be more successful as an organization and reach as many veterans as possible, and ensuring that the things that are important to us stay key within the organization.
Right, right. Well, that sounds like a big job. It's probably easier to tell us what you don't do.
Maybe.
All right. Well, I'm interested in asking, how do you decide who gets a quilt? Is there like some criteria? Do they need to be injured? What are some of the things you look at when you get a nomination?
So our nomination process is very easy. It's online. You go on our website, and a veteran can nominate themselves, or a friend, family, coworker can go in and do it. Um, so the nomination criteria, the criteria for getting your quilt, is that you were either ill or injured as a result of your service, or you were. I'm gonna. Excuse me.
Bless you.
You bet.
Or of course, if you had served in a combat, peacekeeping, or humanitarian role. And initially, when we started off, it was, we grew our. I don't think we really grew the individual would have been eligible, but we just changed our language a little bit, because I think it's truly important to recognize that, especially when it comes to invisible injury, that it sometimes can take a while for veterans to even recognize that, that they're struggling with these, and it's a new challenge for them. So, um, as a retired military nurse, I'm a true believer that when you participate in, combat, humanitarian, and peacekeeping missions, you don't ever come back the same way that you probably left. And there's a reason why, we're so blessed and lead a charmed life here in this country. And it's because of those folks that leave and go away, or come to service, whether it's within our own country when needed. So it's important that we recognize that entire group.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're muted, Laurie.
I'm trying to drown out the sound of the tree cutters. There's a whole team of people outside cutting. We have this big park and there's huge trees and they're trimming them. So I'll go on mute when I'm not speaking. So I just shared, Jill, you probably have some questions. I'm interested in knowing more about your military career, Lisa. And that connection must be really powerful for you too, to have been a veteran yourself.
100%. And actually, my service is what initially connected me to Quilts of Valor. But I was a nurse for 21 years. I did numerous tours in Afghanistan, both in Kandahar and in Bagram. So definitely combat was not a stranger to me, and whether it was my experience or the experiences of those around me and the patients and that came in through the hospital. And the connection that I have there with Quilts of Valor is that, so Quilts of Valor was actually started in Edmonton back in 2006. And it was started by a small group of ladies, and Leslie Zwall was the founder. And they had decided that for the soldiers that were returning home injured, they wanted to have quilts for them. And so while, Afghanistan was definitely a catalyst, and at that time, the battle group was from the area. So
Mhm.
that leads up to why and why and when and where things happened. Um, but then if you fast forward a year later, I was in Kandahar at the hospital and we received a box of quilts. And I didn't know anything about Quilts of Valor. I was not a quilter for certain. Loved quilts being from Newfoundland, but didn't have a history there. And I just remember it was really difficult because um, there was no follow through with our patients. You really did emergency trauma care and got that person out of a war zone.
Mhm.
And there were so many reasons for it. Obviously, because we were, a trauma hospital in the middle of a war zone, and also the ability for the mission to continue. It does hinge on how many beds are available at our hospital. So it was get them patched up and stable as possible and get them out of there. And I remember with these quilts, for the most part, because these soldiers, would be traveling, we would have them sleeping as well as possible, and secure airways and things. But it was really it was something that I never thought affected me as much as it did. But having these quilts to wrap them up and kind of say, it reminded me of being a little girl at my nan's house and saying, "Good night, God bless. And when you open your eyes, you're going to be in Germany and you're going to see the people that you love the most in the world." And it really did something for me. It was that connection piece, and then I never really thought about it again until years after, you know, Afghanistan was done. I went a long time trying to convince myself, others, especially myself, that I was okay, and that all this PTSD stuff was normal. And when I got, when I crashed and hit the wall or whatever they want to call it, I was very sick, very, very sick. I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't leave my basement if my husband wasn't home. And my very first psychiatrist actually recommended that I try quilting. And I joke a little bit about it and say that my son, I had a very young son, and he is my world. And if they had told me that I needed to learn to be an acrobat or a clown in the circus, I would have done that as well.
Mhm.
Quilting was a lot easier, thankfully. I don't have to perform at the big top, so I just said, get me my. We went out, we got everything I needed. At the time, I had just received my service dog, Gunner, and off we went. We went to quilt class. And I'm still to this day not sure if that physician actually knew the twofold part of what he was accomplishing, because I know that you basically can't think bad things and sew a pattern or proper seams and make a decent quilt. And but the other part of it was that it now also gave me community, because just the demographics of the group of ladies that were home, they were as old as they were, close to the same age as my mom. Some of them were close to the same age as my nan. And now I had them, calling and saying, well, did you want to come to this little soul group? We're going to pick you up. Do you want to? And I really pushed myself. Initially it was, that having something to do, having something to focus on. And then it became pushing myself to have to leave the house and do something, and a little bit of a community that were kind of a bunch of moms and grandmas that were going to make sure that I was okay. So it was pretty much a miracle for me, I think, that conversation happened. And kind of once I started, being able to make a quilt that wasn't going to fall apart, uh, my thoughts went right back to Quilts of Valor. And I haven't really ever looked back, I guess.
That is a great story, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. I didn't know. I didn't know that about you. You had
That's
issues.
Yeah,
amazing.
say that. I wasn't allowed to sew the name bars on my son's hockey jerseys. If my husband was in the field when I had to do that, when he'd come back home, he would put them back. He would take them off and put them on again because it was not my forte for sure. I could sew you up, but don't give me anything else. And uh, it was something that was instrumental in my healing, and it was something new. So I had previously been a runner, a soccer player. I loved sports. I had played high levels, and but this was something that was new, and it was okay that I couldn't sew a proper seam at first, and there was no expectations that I was now, going to be able to do a certain level. And while definitely that physician, did a lot of things for me, medically and getting me on the path to healing. That was the best medicine he could have ever prescribed for me as it worked out.
That's amazing. Amazing. I do a lot of work, Lisa, in the Indigenous community. I've worked on and off reserves now for probably 25 years. And they also, it's very ceremonial in their culture to drape quilts on people that have accomplished something or have served the community or whatever. So I'm finding that fascinating to hear about the Quilts of Valor.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very beautiful.
And the presentation ceremonies can be very therapeutic and also emotional. I've been to so many, and each one is so special.
Well, tell us about that. What does that look like? You've presented them. So, Jill, tell us what that looks like.
Well, each quilt has a label,
Okay.
and on the label it has the person's name, the date that the quilt is presented, and oh, there we go. There's a label, Quilt of Valor. So
Oh,
quilt
beautiful.
is assigned to a veteran, and there's an ID number that goes on the quilt, and it's registered with Quilts of Valor Canada as it has a role, and their motto is a hug in every stitch. And
Oh,
what does the label say on there's a statement that we read out.
So it
yeah.
says, so everyone has a label. It
Mhm.
says, made with love, respect, and gratitude for your sacrifice to Canada. May the hugs stitched into this quilt give you comfort, strength, and love.
I mean, really. If that isn't therapeutic, I don't know what is. It's a beautiful gesture, and these are all volunteers across the country, and everyone should be so proud of what they're contributing to Quilts of Valor. How many quilts have been presented now, Lisa?
We're over 23,000 quilts.
23,000 quilts in less than 20 years, since 2006,
Yes, yes,
and
and
all volunteer.
so right now we're close to around two. At this time, we do about 2,000 a year.
Mhm.
Um, we could do more if we had more resources, of course, like any charity. That sometimes that can be the hiccup. We have a lot of very long-term loyal volunteers, and so the top fabric for the quilts comes from the volunteers themselves,
Mhm.
and the money that we're able to raise goes for the backing and the batting of quilts. So that's one of the areas right now where we're kind of struggling in that this pool of volunteers it's expensive to buy. Like everything has gone up. So we've just introduced it's been around for a while, but we're really trying to put a fresh face on it and introduce a program called the Sponsor a Quilt program. And with that program, it's $250 for a business, and we have it set up for business. And also, we have a page that acknowledges realtors that do it on our website, of course, because of that close relationship between the veteran and military community and realtors. And I mean,
Mhm.
where else in the world can you think that you may use the same realtor 3 times, but yet you've moved across the country, you know, back and forth? And so we figure that that's a fair price that businesses and others can sponsor, and that allows us then to purchase fabric for the whole quilt. and
Mhm.
and then that way an individual could sponsor it, a business, and and we're hoping that with going forward with that, that it's going to give us that ability to have more resources and help out our quilters. I have several ladies that are, on a fixed income right now at that stage in their life, and they are master quilters. They're amazing. However, they certainly don't have the funding and the resources to necessarily purchase as much fabric as they could quilt. And so when I get a sponsor a quilt, then I'll do the kits and drop them off, and they'll quilt them up very quickly. And um, so it's yeah, so there's all kinds of ways. We're always trying to kind of create new ways to meet the demand. Right now we have probably a waiting list. I'm going to say somewhere between 25 and 2600 veterans are on our list right now.
Oh my goodness.
And some area, and the issue is that of course some areas have a greater need because they're an area where there's a base. And for example, Gagetown and Halifax are areas where we have a much longer waiting list, just because of the fact that a lot of folks retire there. And big Army, big Navy areas.
Right, right. And now people can volunteer in various capacities with the organization. I know some people, like for myself, I was just an ambassador. I was an ambassador, but I didn't sew. But some people just sew the blocks. Some
Mm-hmm.
people do the tops. Some people just do the quilting. So there's different ways to get involved, and in many cases, many hands make one quilt.
Yes.
And I think can you still get the hug block kits?
Yes.
And how many blocks make a top? Can you go through the stages of what makes a quilt, or how is a quilt of Valour made?
So if you look on our website, or if you Google us,
Mhm,
you will, or on our Facebook page, you will see that kind of front and center. You'll see a lot of the O Canada fabric. And
mhm.
uh, I'm sitting in my quilt room, so as you can see, I don't even have to reach for any of these props right here. So I mean, you have your various fabrics that have the O Canada line.
Right.
And Northcott Fabrics, a Canadian company, every year they do a different O Canada line, and part of the money that they raise, part of the money that they get from selling this fabric to the quilt shops, they give us back a portion of it, and of course, then we buy more fabric. They've also been very generous in that they give us, wholesale and reduced wholesale prices for our quilts. Um, so yes, our veterans love the O Canada line, but they certainly love all different quilts.
Mhm,
Um, it does not have to be the O Canada fabric. We have, I always say, I have some fishing quilts, and as quick as I can get them quilted, they're gone. Sometimes our veterans are able to choose, if I have a few, or if the representative, I may say, oh, I have a Canada one, I have a green one, and I have a blue one and a fishing one, and then they can kind of choose from there. Or other times, if the list is long, we're just fortunate that they're able to get a quilt. It varies across time and what's available. But on our website, you'll see the requirements. So it just needs to be new quilt fabric, something
mhm.
that's suitable for a veteran. So you just, no kids prints, no holiday prints. Um, I just tell people, like, if you would be proud that your quilt, is going to be posted, and you'll see a picture of a veteran with it, and you'd be proud that went to that veteran. Um, that they can be different colors, different designs. Our website does showcase that. We have a minimum size of 55 by 70, and that ensures that it's a comfortable size that somebody can, cuddle up with it, and it can provide comfort. You'll hear some veterans say that they don't want to use their quilt. My husband doesn't use his quilt. He has it hung right outside our bedroom door. So there's a nice big wall there, and that's where he wanted it, and that's where it's been through 3 different moves. It has stayed there, and he wants to see it first thing when he gets up, and he wants to see it last thing when he goes to bed, and he really just is too afraid to use it. Now, he does have the advantage of having a couple of other quilts that he can snuggle up with. But for him, that is how, and I've heard several veterans say that they've had boxes built and racks built and different things. So it's really about how it provides comfort to them.
Right. You're on mute, Laurie.
They're gone. I can stay on board now.
Oh, good.
Kathy has a question. Do you use both sewing machines and hand stitching? And she also asked, how long does it take to make a quilt?
Good question.
So it varies. Anybody, it's like with any craft, or the more intricate the design. Some of these quilts have hundreds of hours in them. We use both sewing machine and hand quilting. So it's the choice. I mean, it's hard to believe, but we do get absolutely stunning hand pieced, hand bind, everything. Typically, I would say most of our tops are done by folks using a machine, and we usually hand sew the binding on the back. That would be for the majority of the quilts that we get. But no, we do sometimes get those hand sewn complete treasures, and it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, there's some. They're all beautiful. They're all beautiful. Is there a theme? I remember there at one time they featured different patterns every year. They would Quilts of Valour would promote a certain design. Is that still done?
So what we do is we have so since almost the beginning, there's been hug blocks, and those are a 9.5-inch block that every year we release a couple of new ones, and that gives people the opportunity if they just want to do a block or two. And there's patterns on our website that are free that can combine those hug blocks into a complete top, or also the opportunity is there that we have a hug block coordinator. So all the hug blocks, you can mail your hug blocks to the coordinator, and then she takes them and shuffles them around so that we have, variations. And also it's pretty amazing because when that quilt is put together, the veteran can see that there was a block maybe made in Newfoundland, another one done in
Wow.
another one from the Yukon. Like it's really amazing. And even the same way with kind of, Jill, as you talked about, that there's many hands can be on a quilt. I mean, on a sew day, I always joke and I say, you had, to some of to the gentlemen when I'm presenting, and I say there was 40 ladies that got together and made this quilt, and then
Wow.
quilted it together, and then another person did the hand stitching. And I say ladies, but we certainly do have men quilters in our group for sure. Our quilt this year, we've started and you just asked about the special quilts of the year, or the blocks. So we have, like I said, we've been struggling to try to keep up with the demand. So every year we kind of now release like our block of the year, and I call it our big block, because the hug blocks are 9.5. And then we try to do something that's a fairly, beginner friendly, but still looks, quite nice when it's put together with the right fabric block. And that one's usually somewhere around the 13-inch, 12.5 to 13.5 inch. And this year it was called Connections. Last year it was Parade Square. And it's usually just a simple block, and we put the free pattern on our website. And what we've been doing for the last few years is Quilt Canada is a quilt show that's held across the country. It moves from across the country. Last year it was in Halifax. This year, only a month ago, it was in Edmonton, and next year it'll be in Mississauga. We've been very fortunate that we've had sponsors, and this year Bernina provided the sewing machines in our booth, and then folks that are visiting the quilt show stop in and sew a block. And we always invite some members from the local military community to come, and they sew their blocks, and it always brings excitement to the booth because, not too many folks are coming around in military uniforms. So it's always nice to generate a crowd. And those help generate more quilts and get us towards our goal of reaching all the veterans that qualify for our quilts. And the last 3 years, we've done a poppy panel. So it's been something very unique that we've done with the help of Deborah Edwards from Northcott, who is their head designer. And it started with Patrick Milner from Halifax. And he is an artist that works with oils, and he specializes in remembrance. So he did our first poppy panel. Last year we had one done by Sailor Danny, who's a Newfoundland artist, and he featured, yep, there's Patrick Milner right there.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that beautiful? He's out of Halifax.
He's
And
amazing.
they did a quilt panel out of this. Yes.
And then last year was Sailor Danny, and with the show being in Halifax, we wanted again another maritime Atlantic artist, and he highlighted, which was wonderful, and brought a lot of attention to it as well this year with the Unknown Soldier returning to Newfoundland, but it had the poppy and the forget me not. Because, of course, that was the original remembrance flower.
Oh, wow.
And this year we had another beautiful panel, and that one was done by Jody Miller, who is an Air Force veteran in Saskatchewan. And so all of these artists donate the image to us, and then Northcott helps us with getting it printed on these beautiful fabrics so that we sell them, and they're a fundraiser. But then we also get a lot of the quilts back that are going to veterans.
Right. Here's another question. Kathy's got lots of questions here this morning. Do you have a quilt that has blocks representing each province? There's a great idea.
So interesting, Kathy. We are going to have a new kit coming out in the fall, and it got made this year with our connections block, and my supporters here in Newfoundland were amazing. And when I needed more quilts for the show, just to put up on the display, we did one with Newfoundland tartan and the O Canada fabrics. And after speaking to Northcott, now we are going to have a kit that's going to come out this fall where folks will have all of the Canadian tartans along with the Canada tartan itself. And we're going to have those cut into maple leaves. And that way folks can purchase them on our online site and our little online store and have it so that they can use them in the quilts and have a representation from each province. But we always try to represent all areas of the country. And this year was pretty exciting. Northcott has really been so kind to us and taken our feedback and kind of met our needs. So, for example, this past year, this is one of my favorites because it is the first time ever that you'll see the National War Memorial featured.
Oh, yes.
Fabric.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful.
And of course, then there's various icons. So, so for you, Laurie, you'll see there you've got Peggy's Cove.
Right.
Back, you can see the Chateau Frontenac.
Yes.
Bridge. We've got the CN Tower, and I'm just trying to look backwards here. What else we can see on this one? So we've got the Rockies. And
beautiful.
Let me see. Does this one have my favorite? Well, the War Memorial is obviously my favorite, but oh, here we go. I'd be amiss if I didn't, of course, give a shout out to the Cabot Tower here in.
Wow.
So that was pretty exciting this year that that we were able to do that.
That's beautiful. So much thought goes into these quilts. So much, consideration.
Well, you know what I'm thinking? You know what's going through my mind right now? I got to get off my duff here. I know how to make quilt blocks. I could do that.
We're going to have to schedule a follow-up show, Laurie, where you're going to show us the top that you've made.
See, I could be doing that while I'm watching, Yellowstone or whatever.
Yes.
Well, I have to give a shout out to all the organizations that host Quilts of Valour in different cities and towns that host sew days. I know in Ottawa, there were some legions and some clinics that would host representatives and volunteers. They would bring in all these ironing boards, sewing machines, extension boards, tables and chairs, and I brought food. And we'd have a potluck, and we'd have 15 people sewing, and we would focus on one or two quilts that day.
Yeah.
So they would put out the felt panel, and you'd lay out the blocks and put together a topper. Yeah, it's amazing. It brings the community together. It's a
Yes.
wonderful
Well,
opportunity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's very popular here. And when I had my lodge, at least twice a year, they rented space from me and would come and use our little conference center, bring them sewing machines. Light bill would go through the roof, but that's all right. And then, of course, we had rooms, so they stayed for the weekend, and they came and quilted all weekend long. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Quilting retreats are very popular.
I had no idea. When I went to Quilts Canada the first time in 2018 in Ottawa, I was it was this huge it's a huge industry. I had no idea. I've lived a sheltered life in regards to quilting. And it was so wonderful to be there and to see what the volunteers were doing. And I remember watching people come up. They bring how many blocks for a quilt? 90?
It really depends on the pattern.
I remember somebody came by and just dropped off stacks of hug blocks. Here you go. Here's my contribution. Here's a couple hundred blocks. If you guys can put it together, that'd be great. So yeah, they're so giving, and I mean the time and the money involved with making these quilt blocks, the fabric, it's and then the long arm machines. Trying to find someone in some regions, you've got the quilt top, you've got to put it all together, then you have to have the actual quilt quilted.
Yes.
And in many cases you need a long arm machine, and it's quite the process.
My
investment.
My long arm much stays Valour on it all the time. But that's that's me. That's my joy. And but we have many volunteers. Some people do it in their home, and it's just part of their quilting journey. Other times it's long armers that have businesses, and they sneak ours in a little break or whatever. But it's quite amazing how generous people are with their talent and their time.
And now I want to emphasize, Quilts of Valour Canada is a registered charity.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, you've been running their website here on the ticker, Laurie. So go visit their website, quiltsofvalour.ca, and see what you can, and just if you're curious about how you can support Quilts of Valour, please visit their website, because they're doing great work. And I know that the recipients whom I've met, and I myself, I truly, I treasure mine. I treasure my quilt. And I had one recent friend say, my quilt means more to me than my medals.
Oh, 100%. We get that all the time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I think what I find very rewarding about this organization, as as a veteran, and is that the presentation of the quilts are it's completely focused on the veteran that is receiving the quilt. I joke now that I'm home in Newfoundland because I've given out quilts at many a shed party, as they're quite popular here, and that's where friends gather and get together. And I say the only place now I haven't done it is an outhouse, because I've import parking lots. I've given them at Parliament in Ottawa, on the side of the road where somebody wanted to meet on a highway, hospitals, churches, legions. It's whatever serves the needs of that veteran. And sometimes they want it to be a family gathering, and other times they just want it very quiet in their living room. And what I always tell somebody when I can tell they're a little bit nervous and not sure, I just tell them that the only thing that will cause problems is that if I show up and they're in their jogging pants and they haven't told me, and I have to iron an outfit to come to see them, that I will be disappointed that you made me iron clothes if you were going to, and you didn't tell me you were wearing your jogging pants. So that's it. It's truly about that veteran and what their quilt means to them and how they want to receive it.
It is a very personal thing, and it is emotional, and yeah, it's a powerful moment.
So our quilts are never given a prize. We contact the veteran, we ask that the nominator, of course, before they start the process, that they check with the veteran to make sure that either that they want a quilt and that, or they haven't received one already, and that we recognize how, what this is for them. It's their experience, it's their quilt. It's not about the organization. It's not about the facility that we're giving out the quilt. It's all about them. So, and one of the things I like to highlight is when we're able to have family there, and it happens to be a barbecue, and there's grandkids, and there's for those that serve and have a family, nobody serves alone. I've been on both sides of the fence, being the one. I've been on the home team and I've been on the away team, and I found being the home team much harder than being the away team. When my husband was deployed, I found that much harder than being deployed myself. And a lot of times when we get things in the military, sometimes it's scheduled and it's just as things should be, or other times it could be, you're getting a medal that's very important in your career and distinguished. But it could be quick, the general's coming. Everybody get out behind the hospital and line up. He's coming, and you get your medal, and hopefully somebody got a picture, or whatever, or everything that you get or you get a certificate that everybody else gets, and the people that you love the most are nowhere around. They're home, they're home man in the home front, and this is really nice because we're able to incorporate the families with the presentation. So we call it a hug from a grateful nation. And if the family's there, our job is done. We kind of give the spiel about the quilt, about the history of Quilts of Valor. We thank them for their service, and and highlight that it doesn't have to always be service. Is not always be on the news. Service can be. You think about even today in our country, you could have I'm going to say a private, for example, who goes where they're told when they need to go there, and you could have somebody that within a 12-month span could be fighting a fire, then fighting the flood and filling the sandbags, and then coming back to shovel snow later on. And that's what we can be grateful for the folks that serve our country and take care of us. And those are the times that they miss the birthdays. They miss babies being born. They miss anniversaries. They miss first days of school, all of those things. And so when we're able to organize a presentation to have the family take that quilt and put it around them, that's pretty awesome. That's what makes all the needle sticks and and a little bit of thread everywhere and those kind of things. That's what makes it all worth it, because we can't say thank you enough to these people and that's how I feel about it. And I feel like my insight on it is a little bit unique in that as a nurse, and and I signed up to serve my country, but I also truly felt a privilege that I was able to care for my brothers and sisters in arms. And so I really see quilt as a part of kind of an extension of that. So don't get me wrong, you may hear me and people may think, oh wow, she does all this fabulous stuff, and I get 100 times more out of it than I could ever put in. It just for me, it really gave me that continuation of being able to do something for my fellow veteran.
You're still serving, Lisa.
Yep, but that's my thing. That's what it makes me feel good. So in some ways it sounds like so altruistic and wonderful, but don't let it fool you. It makes me just as happy as can be. And yeah, and for a long time my dog passed away this past March unexpectedly, so that was very difficult. But I will say that when I started feeling better and now I could make quilts, there was no presenter in my area. And I decided, okay, I was going to give this presentation thing a try to give the quilts to veterans. And having Gunner kind of, in one way, it made it a little bit easy because people could see this dog next to me that had a vest that said PTSD service dog. And so they kind of knew that I was coming from the same camp that they were in. And, when I see people struggling, just let them know. I'm like, nobody would have bet a penny on me. And look, I just do this quilt. Not only that, I had the guts to come to your house and give it to you.
Right.
And, so it's but it's been a long. It didn't happen overnight, and
No.
so I find that way that I do have some insight into what that person is potentially going through, and I don't mind saying anymore that it's okay. A bad day is a bad day. If you want to, if you're not good for me to give you your quilt, don't worry. We'll do it in a couple of weeks. It's not going to last forever. Put one foot in front of the other, and we'll make it happen for you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a question, a quilting question. So if I wanted to make some blocks, I'll go to the website after the show and check everything out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have people who just donate random blocks? Like if I had an idea for a block and I put it together, you
So
have it.
don't
Does
really
it
have.
need to be approved?
So for the blocks, because it makes it much easier, of course, for them to all fit together, we
Yes.
do ask for hug blocks, which are the ones that are on our website, and it uses the O Canada fabric so that when they all
Okay.
which are the ones the O Canada fabric.
Okay.
And but if you wanted to make a top and complete a top, then that can be whatever your choice is.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
And
I better get it.
we have reps across the country, and on our website you can see the contact little tab, and there's a map, and so you can find who your local rep is, and
Okay.
then that way you can reach out and say, is there a sew day? Is there something you're looking for? What can I do to help? I have some helpers right now that are tremendous, just that I can't keep up with the binding, and if I'm binding, I'm not at the long arm.
Right.
So so I have some folks that just will pick up a dozen quilts or a half dozen quilts and take them back, and like you said, in the evening they're watching a show or doing whatever, and they do the hand binding, and that's not unique to me here in Newfoundland.
No.
I
No.
no, I have a friend that I made in Ottawa, and I couldn't tell you. We probably could never count how many quilts of Valour that she's done the binding on, and
Wow.
she loves binding, and so the quilters love to have her.
Yes, because that's always the tedious part. Part
Yeah.
I didn't like. Yes.
And when people listen, somebody may be listening now and say, oh, well, there's nothing I could really do to help this organization. And, okay, sure, I'd love to donate a little bit of money or whatever. And that's wonderful. But there's always something that we've got on the go. There's always something like you'll see posted on our website. Anybody going from here to there that could bring some quilts.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And they, all of a sudden, if you realize, you're like, you know what, I go down and visit mom and dad, and that's a 3-hour drive. I wonder, do they need anything brought? And like, we have people that are on our team, and that's really, it's huge for us, because money not spent, doing different shipping and things,
Yeah.
that goes towards fabric.
Right.
And so pretty much, if you have if you think that you can help us in any way, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
We're a resilient crew, and we'll put you.
I'm
We'll do
in.
that.
Are there any regions that you're looking that are needing more volunteer involvement?
So it goes sometimes in cycles, just because we may have a volunteer that has been very busy, and then all of a sudden they move, or there's an illness. I know right now in BC, we definitely could use not only more quilters, but also folks to do presenting.
Mm-hmm.
We have and we have admin jobs that really you don't need to be a quilter. You just need to be able to be, a leader or an organizer, or good with a spreadsheet. There's, because all of this has to be tracked. So for sure, I know right now in BC, we could use some more presenters out there. We always need long armors. We are always desperate for long armors. We do get that bottleneck that happens there. And I mean, because it's unique. It's an expensive piece of equipment, and not a lot of quilters invest in it because it's more feasible to go and rent one at a store or pay somebody else to do it.
Right, because you need the space for the long arm. It's a big
Well,
machine.
mine is behind me here, and it takes 12. It's a 12-foot frame, and but I got it because it was what was keeping me going. And at the time, I was renting a machine, and Gunnar and I would go and rent the machine at the local quilt store. And I had something going on with meds, and I was having issues with my eyes. And so I found that it really increased my stress level because now I would have to pay to get a cab over to the quilt store. And then if I didn't have a good day and get what I wanted quilted, and then a cab back home, I was really upset. And it just didn't work for me. And that didn't go on for too long before my husband said, this thing about going to the quilt store used to be really important because it got you out of the house. But now you're in guilds and you're having sew days. So let's just go get one of those things. And so there it is, my long arm buddy. Oh, there's been a lot of, and that's what I use it for, is Quilts of Valour. On occasion, a friend has a baby or something like that. But my long arm is my joy for Quilts of Valour.
Right. Well, ladies, we have about 4 minutes, and this has just been delightful, Lisa. And you're delightful. And I just want to thank you so very much for coming on the show. We'd love to have you back another time as well. And I think it would be fun to have Lisa come on a Fun Friday and just talk about how much fun it is to quilt. And it's kind of resurged for me, something that I used to love to do and I haven't done in years. And my mom, I was talking to her yesterday. She lives in Sherbrooke, Nova Scotia. Hi, Mom, if you're listening. And recently got herself an iPad. Can you believe it? And she's on Facebook. And I'm going, and she said, what's your show about tomorrow? I was speaking with her on the phone, and I said, it's going to be about quilting. And of course, my mom is an avid, I'm going to talk to her about making some blocks. She could be doing that. And of course, they'd all be hand stitched and everything, but yeah, so thank you so very much, Lisa. Anything else?
Laurie, the biggest message I always say somebody gets a quilt is that I always tell them the only thing that they're obligated, and even if somebody's listening today, the biggest point and message I want them to take home is that if all of a sudden now you thought about somebody and you said, maybe they could use a quilt. And you think about, the gentleman down the road, and that he served, and some people will say, oh, I know that person's going through a hard time. And so don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, I heard about this Quilts of Valour group, and, do you have a quilt? Would you like a quilt? Sometimes we have wait lists, but you got to get your name on there to get one. And, believe it or not, there's still World War II veterans out there that we're tracking down. So don't hesitate to, spread the word. And it doesn't have to be to tell somebody to make a block or make a donation. Just spread the word so that we can reach those veterans that really could benefit from a quilt and give us a chance to say thank you from a grateful nation.
I've already thought of somebody.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. 2 people, actually. 3. Yeah. Very nice. My dad was a World War II veteran. So I did a show a year or so ago, and I had a panel of women whose dads were World War II vets and what it was like growing up when they came home. And so that was a fun show that we did too. The Daughters of Veterans. And of course, we're all in our 70s now, so we're getting up there too as well. So, yeah. So thank you so very much. This has been amazing. And I will certainly be spreading the word and putting it out there for sure in a bigger way, because I did not know anything about Quilts of Valour until Jill mentioned it to me.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you both, Laurie and Jill. It's been wonderful, and if anybody needs to reach me, just look on the website. I'm there.
Yes, absolutely. And what we'll do is I'm going to send you a copy of the show. So
Wonderful.
you have it and you could share it with your that's something that I can do for you, is I'll send it to you, what we've just done, and you could actually share it with members of your team
Thank you.
and inspire them even more,
Yes,
right?
my team
So
is amazing. Our team is it's amazing.
it sounds like it.
Yeah,
It sounds.
it's just every day they blow me away.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here. And thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Jill.
Oh, my
Jill has
pleasure,
been
always.
instrumental in bringing us wonderful veterans that we can talk with and share stories and find out what's happening for them. And that's always near and dear to us, our stories and our veterans. So important, the work you're doing, Lisa. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye for now, ladies.